Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today it's a big one. We got the newest project from Miley Cyrus, Something Beautiful. I'm going to start this review with something of a contentious observation that in certain circles would be borderline heresy, but to me makes a certain amount of sense. Miley Cyrus is my generation's Cher. I mean, think about it. Both coming from television, tightly controlled by domineering yet insecure men early on in their careers, before taking a while to find their true sound, and a wildly eclectic journey at that. Both have unconventional voices that probably work the best in high theatricality or even rock music or as dance divas, often with more power and flair than what's considered good taste. Both are iconic in queer circles, in other words, wildly campy. Both are wildly inconsistent in terms of quality from album to album and will probably never get the due in their time for what did stick the landing. And truth be told, I'm not sure I would classify either of them as album artists, because when they've tried for it, the results tend to be pretty mixed, even if you gotta admire some of the ambition. Now, all this snapped sharply into focus the first couple of listens I gave to Something Beautiful, which evokes a certain retro 70s, early 80s gloss that was very reminiscent of Cher in this era, especially with some of the Californicated showgirl dance club vibes in the marketing. Now, a lot of this I can trace back to the producers that when I saw them here, I was a little taken aback, even if eventually kind of made sense. Sean Everett, who has been amplifying windswept indie Americana for the past 15 or so years, and Jonathan Rado, the guy behind the theatrical retro stylings of Foxygen, but recently has spent more time as a producer behind the scenes, spanning from Alex Cameron to Wise Blood to Father John Misty. In other words, these are indie veterans, the folks that you want if you're trying to evoke some huge genre-bending throwback tones, but there's also some idiosyncrasies with their sound that they build that I wound up not quite loving this album the way I was hoping. Yeah, a bit of a plot twist here, a bit of a surprise to me too. Cause it's a weird case. Miley Cyrus as a performer fits into this genre-blurring era seamlessly. She's certainly committing to the bit, even if I don't think I'm as entirely on board compared to the fast-paced early 80s rock Plastic Hearts, but Sean Everett's mixing and mastering can accentuate certain ranges in the sound in odd places and ways. Miley's voice often sounds perpetually compressed, amplifying those keening, sharp edges, but more than a few times it sounded like she was fighting against the chalky, buzzy waves of the mix that just feels overstuffed, not just with the added horns or strings or harmonica or the oily synths, but the texture as well. That's the Jonathan Rado side, and it's shorter on groove than it should be. It certainly sounds big and expensive. If you look at the small army of producers and additional writers they brought on board, they pulled out all the stops to realize this vision, with names spanning Adam Granducio of the War on Drugs, to Kenny Siegel, to the band Alves showing up to support End of the World and Every Girl You've Ever Loved, and that song also has Naomi Campbell and Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers on it, and that's not counting the guitar contributions, spanning from Danielle Haim to Brittany Howard of all people, not polishing the mix and master to accentuate them, bring it to a mere shine. It's a baffling move, like how the title track feels drowning in its own layers on the hook, or how the warmer country adjacent tones of Golden Burning Sun is clawing through this gauzy goop around it, probably the biggest dud on the album. And look, I understand wanting to recreate some of the ragged texture and the transition from the lush disco of the 70s to more of a gothic dance tone from the early 80s, but there just should be more polish in the execution instead of just throwing budget willy-nilly at it. The odd sequencing and theatricality around the interludes of the funky swagger of Easy Lover, that's another odd choice. The album's sense of momentum is all over its place, especially with the extended long-running cuts on the back half. It doesn't help matters that for all the pomp and circumstance, the lyrics and themes feel mostly flimsy to me. Miley Cyrus has always had more existential angst than she's gotten credit, I'll say it again, and I'll admit it's better expressed here with the apocalyptic illusions amidst love and loss than the faded ennui of Endless Summer Vacation, or whatever the hell she was attempting on Miley Cyrus and her dead pets. Give Me Love, it's literally trying to recreate the biblical sprawl of a Bosch painting before having her spiral towards transcendence, but there's this weird tension between the songs that want to luxuriate in the attention of the lovers or the audience, and those that feel more hungry and grounded seeking it out. A similar amount of preening in both cases, which is to be expected as Miley has admitted that she predominantly writes about herself, but the latter tracks have more of an edge or a sense of actual stakes, where for all the grandiosity, this album can feel a little detached and hollow from that tactile place. What grounds her, this disembodied light surrounded by mirrors. That being said, you can find tangible magic even in that. End of the World did wind up growing on me for the obvious ABBA riff that it is. The vamping synth pulse of Walk of Fame really is anchored by Brittany Howard, but it works in that lane, even if it does run long like nearly every song in the back half. Another 70s homage that works substantially less well, but on the synth and sax heavy Every Girl You Ever Loved, it lands amidst all the voguing that feels very queer and welcome for Pride. And the world-weary More to Love, the ballad, it nails the glassy sadness of a breakup where you realize at the end, you thought you had given up more to hold it together, but it's just not that much. But to tie this together, I might not think that Something Beautiful lives up to its title, but I can tell that everyone else involved in it does, which makes it both intriguing and deeply frustrating that it's not quite working. To circle back to Cher, one of the greatest strengths that she shares with Miley is that her magnetic charisma was often so strong on individual songs, you could look past how the writing was questionable, or the production was slapdash, or how it didn't really hold together away from the stage light. And at this album's best, that same self-love anchors it too, but if you dig even a little past the surface gloss, you might find that there's less there than you were hoping, where Miley Cyrus's greater thematic ambitions only highlight that, once again, there's kinda less to work with. So yeah, more of an intriguing slight misfire than I'm calling it bad. In fact, I would still call this quite good, and the best moments really shine, but if you're gonna pretend that it's like the end of the world, I just want a little more to hold on to. That's all. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. I'm really not sure where this album's going to wind up getting received. I've seen a lot of folks praising it. I've seen a lot of more of the critics being lukewarm, kind of where I'm falling, to be honest. But hey, y'all have comments down there below, and I know that share comment's going to spark a firestorm. Comments down there, have fun, boost the engagement for the algorithm. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in getting albums onto my schedule, well, actually at this point the schedule's closed because it's June. It'll be reopening in July just so I can catch up on things before the mid-year. But beyond that, if you want to help support the channel or argue with me directly on my Discord, YouTube memberships and Patreon are right over there. Please don't feel obligated. Tough times, I understand, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.